They found Agent Halden's body nearly 3 miles beyond the facility's perimeter. That's what the official report claimed. What it didn't mention was that his eyes had been replaced by obsidian-like marbles, or that his tongue had been surgically removed, while he was still alive. Worst of all, it left out the equations etched into his flesh, the same symbols we'd discovered beneath sublevel sigma just 2 weeks earlier. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Elias Rowan, and until 8 months ago, I was Chief Security Officer at a government black site known internally as the Mournail Experimental Complex, buried deep in the Utah desert. Most people think it's an aircraft testing range. That's true, in the same way a storm is just a little wind and rain. By telling you this, I'm breaking a series of non-disclosure contracts that could bury me for life. But honestly, I don't expect to live long enough to be prosecuted. The nosebleeds started 3 days ago. This morning, I found the first black mark behind my left ear, just like the others. I joined the Air Force at 23. Served in 2 overseas operations. Someone, somewhere, saw something in me, and I ended up getting recruited into something much bigger. Mournail. The pay was outrageous. The secrecy? Absolute. After 16 years, I thought I'd seen it all. Aircraft that turned invisible to radar. Weapons that erased memories without touching the skin. Experiments in psychology that made MKUltra look like amateur hour. And still, nothing prepared me for what we uncovered below sublevel sigma. At Mournail, everything is compartmentalized. Sectors, security clearances, retinal access points. Most staff have no idea what happens beyond their assigned level. I was one of the few exceptions, authorized to move freely between divisions, overseeing transfers and protocols. There were rumors, of course. Some believed the lower levels housed alien wreckage from Roswell. Others whispered about time-bending machines or unauthorized human experimentation. The truth, as always, was stranger and far more terrifying than the theories. The day it all started was ordinary by desert standards. The sun rose over Dust Ridge, casting long orange beams across the dry valley. I parked in the staff lot, swiped my ID badge, and passed through the biometric scanners. Dr. Adrian Marlowe was already waiting in my office. He was the head of the Department of Frontier Physics, a genius, no doubt, but arrogant and cold. "Rowan," he said, skipping pleasantries. "I need a tactical team authorized for sublevel sigma, Section E." That was the first red flag. Section E had been sealed off for over 30 years, long before either of us worked at Mournail. "By whose authority?" I asked, scrolling through overnight access requests. "Director Langdon's. We've detected anomalous readings. They match data from Project Ascensus." That was my second red flag. Ascensus was a project so classified most people didn't know it had ever existed. It was shut down in 1991 after a containment event that left 12 dead and an entire subwing permanently sealed. I never should have signed off on the request. I should have pressed harder, demanded more information, spoken to Langdon directly. But after 16 years of following protocol, muscle memory took over. I clicked approve. And that's how it began. A digital signature on an unassuming form. That single click would trigger a chain of events that ended with 6 more deaths, including Halden's, and the unraveling of everything I believed about the nature of reality. I just wish I'd known then what I know now. Maybe I could have stopped it. Or maybe we were always meant to open that door. 24 hours after Dr. Marlowe's visit, I found myself standing in front of a blast door that hadn't been opened in over 3 decades. The security team I'd handpicked consisted of 4 men. Sergeant Beck, a former Marine with a decade in facilities security. Owen Lasker, our tech specialist, sharp as hell but jittery under pressure. Grant Holloway, an ex-ranger with a permanent scowl and a death wish. And Eli Mercer, the youngest, barely 3 years into his post. "Atmosphere looks stable," Lasker said, scanning the door readout on his tablet. "No toxins. No radiation." Marlowe stood beside me, practically vibrating with anticipation. Behind him were 2 others from his division, Dr. Kira Voss, a quantum theorist, and Dr. Emil Soren, whose specialty was still unclear to me. Some kind of cognitive dimensional modeling, if I remembered right. The signals have intensified, Marlowe murmured, eyes locked on the reinforced door. Whatever's generating them, it's becoming active. I tapped my comm. Control, this is Rowan. We're initiating entry into sublevel Sigma, Section E. Maintaining open comms. Copy that, Rowan, came the voice from the command center. Vitals and feed are live. Proceed with caution. I placed my hand on the biometric scanner, entered the override code, and the door began to open with a low hydraulic hiss. Darkness spilled out from the chamber beyond, thick and strangely oppressive, as if the shadows themselves resisted the intrusion of our lights. This place should be covered in dust, Mercer whispered. It's too clean. He was right. For a section sealed off since the early 90s, the corridor was strangely pristine. We moved slowly, weapons and sensors sweeping the area. About 50 meters in, the corridor widened into a large, open lab. Ancient computers lined the walls, long dead. Tables overflowed with strange, unfamiliar instruments, curved glass containers filled with amber fluid, metallic structures that didn't follow any known design logic, and pages, actual handwritten pages, covered in dense, complex equations. Holy shit, Holloway muttered, shining his flashlight toward the far wall. What the hell is that? One wall wasn't concrete like the others. It was made of something pitch black, smooth as obsidian, yet it absorbed almost all light rather than reflecting it. It looked wrong. Not just alien, but unnatural, like it didn't belong in this world. Marlowe stepped toward it, ignoring my warning glance. This is it, he said, barely audible. The source of the anomaly. Don't touch it, I warned, stepping forward. He didn't listen. The moment his fingertips grazed the surface, it shifted, subtly, like liquid disturbed by a ripple. But it wasn't the movement that got to me. It was what I saw in his reflection. His reflection moved on its own. It looked at him, its mouth forming silent words. Did you see that? Mercer asked sharply, backing up a step. It's responding to neural output, Marlowe said, still staring. Just like the original census predictions. Electrical impulses triggering dimensional feedback. We need specialized gear. Voss cut in, sounding anxious now. And a bigger team. I nodded quickly. We pull back. Secure the site and come back better equipped. Wait, Marlowe said, pointing at the floor. Look. A thin black tendril, the same material as the wall, had extended outward across the lab floor, inching toward us like a probing finger. It wasn't doing that before, Soren said, his voice flat with dread. Everyone out. I snapped. Now. We backed out carefully, weapons raised. The tendril stopped advancing, but remained, waiting. Watching. The next week passed in a blur. A temporary research post was established just outside the sealed lab. Level Sigma was restricted to essential personnel only. Hazmat protocols were enacted. No one entered Section E without full containment suits and 2 armed escorts. Director Langdon flew in personally from DC, and he didn't come alone. Among his team was a man I hadn't seen before, Dr. Malcolm Silas, tall, frail, and easily pushing into his 70s. His file said, consultant, but the way everyone deferred to him suggested something more. And when we showed him the footage of the black surface, his face went pale. You've opened it again, he muttered. God help us all. 3 nights later, I found him waiting for me in the empty mess hall. There are rules, he said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. If you insist on going back in, you must follow them. All of them. What rules? I asked. The only thing keeping it from recognizing you. Before I could press him further, he stood up and walked away. I caught a glimpse behind his ear as he turned. A small black mark. The same kind I would find on myself, not long after. Back in my quarters, I opened the envelope Dr. Silas had handed me. Inside was a single sheet of yellowed paper, handwritten in fading blue ink. Rules for approaching the threshold. Never touch the surface with bare skin. Never remain in its presence for more than 60 minutes. Never bring electronic recording devices within 10 feet. Never look at your reflection in its surface for more than 3 seconds. If you hear whispers, exit immediately. If it shows you symbols or equations, do not attempt to transcribe them. If you dream of it after exposure, report to medical immediately. At the bottom, scrawled in rushed handwriting. Breaking these rules allows it to recognize you. I should have walked away then. We all should have. Instead, I memorized the rules and burned the paper in my bathroom sink. Sleep came in short bursts that night. I dreamed of floating in a black void. Not darkness, something deeper like absence. Silence so complete it pressed against your ears like pressure at the bottom of the ocean. By morning, I felt as if I hadn't slept at all. At 0800 hours, we returned to Section E. The new protocols were in place. Everyone was outfitted in full hazmat suits. The scientists whispered among themselves, visibly rattled. Even Marlowe, normally sharp and composed, looked bloodshot and disheveled. Before entering, I addressed the group. We're operating under revised safety procedures. No bearskin contact with the anomaly. Maximum exposure time, 60 minutes. No phones, cameras, or personal electronics beyond this checkpoint. If you experience anything unusual, sights, sounds, sensations, report it immediately. Define unusual, Holloway muttered. Anything that shouldn't exist, I answered. Dr. Silas arrived just as we finished prepping. He grabbed my arm, grip surprisingly strong. Did you destroy the rules? I did. Then remember Rule 4. The reflection. 3 seconds. No more. Count if you have to. I'll handle it, I said, unnerved by the fear in his eyes. He looked around, voice lowered. Did you tell the others? I integrated the rules into our protocols without explaining why. Silas nodded. Good. Knowing the source makes it worse. Intention matters, to what's in there. Before I could ask what he meant, Marlowe called for the team to move out. Re-entering Section E felt wrong. The corridor seemed longer. Lights flickered, even though all systems read nominal. When we reached the lab, I froze. The anomaly, the black wall, had grown. It now covered nearly twice the area as before. The tendril that had stretched across the floor was gone, but the edge of the material now appeared slightly raised, like it was waiting. Remarkable, Marlowe whispered, stepping closer with a handheld scanner. It's growing without a detectable energy source. Or it's been growing for decades, Dr. Voss added grimly. We just reopened the door. Maintain safe distance, I reminded everyone. Lasker set up remote monitoring gear. All instruments are isolated. No transmissions near the anomaly. The scientists began collecting data. I positioned Beck and Holloway at the door. Mercer rotated through the lab, eyes sharp, weapon ready. 30 minutes passed with nothing unusual. Then, the air changed. You wouldn't notice it unless you were trained to. It wasn't just temperature. It was pressure. As if the room itself became aware of our presence. Sir, Mercer said quietly, approaching me. Something's off. Feels thicker. Harder to breathe, even with the suit. I feel it too, I admitted. 20 more minutes. Then we're out. He nodded and resumed his patrol. As he passed the edge of the anomaly, he stopped, tilted his head slightly, like listening to something. Mercer, I called. He snapped out of it and kept walking. At 50 minutes, Marlowe spoke. It's showing us something. We turned. The surface of the black wall, previously blank, now shimmered, and began forming symbols. Equations. Complex patterns shifting like living liquid across the obsidian skin. Do not record this, I ordered. No sketches. No photos. Eyes only. But these equations, Dr. Voss whispered. They're solving problems we've never. I said no transcription. Marlowe stared deeply into the shifting symbols. His reflection moved. Its mouth was forming silent words again. Dr. Marlowe, I said sharply. Back away. That's Rule 4. He didn't respond. Break eye contact. Now. At the word rule, he blinked, then stumbled back, dazed. What did you just say? He asked, confused. Rules? Before I could reply, it happened. A sound. Not a voice, not a language, just a low, rhythmic whisper, almost below perception. But we all heard it. And we all knew. Everyone out, I barked. Exposure time reached. No arguments. Move! The scientist hesitated, but my team didn't. They pushed them toward the corridor. Marlowe resisted until Holloway physically grabbed him. Don't make me drag you, document. As we exited, I caught Mercer pausing again, his head tilted, listening. Mercer! Move! He jerked to attention and followed. Outside, in the decontamination chamber, Marlowe confronted me. What are these rules you keep quoting? They're not in the official protocols. New procedures, I replied coldly. Based on observations. Bullshit, he spat. Silas got to you, didn't he? With his apocalypse cult nonsense? He's not stable. He's the reason a census failed. I said nothing. Marlowe stormed off. As I watched the others step into the showers, I noticed Mercer standing still, staring at a wall like it meant something. You good? I asked. He blinked. Yeah. Just tired. What were you hearing in there? He looked at me strangely. I didn't hear anything. But I'd seen him. He was listening. That night, I dreamed of the void again. But this time, I wasn't alone. The equations were there, floating around me, alive with meaning. My mind raced to memorize them. I felt chosen. I woke at 3:17 a.m., covered in sweat, my nose bleeding. And I did exactly what Rule 7 told me not to do. I started writing. By sunrise, I had filled 12 pages with equations. Equations I couldn't possibly understand, and yet, I knew they were correct. They had poured out of me in an unbroken stream, as if my hand wasn't fully my own anymore. I didn't go to medical, like Rule 7 told me to. Instead, I hid the pages under my mattress. The rational part of me screamed that I'd crossed a line. But another part, the one that had floated in the void, insisted these symbols were too important to destroy. After a freezing shower to jolt myself back to reality, I headed to the medical wing. Not to report the dream. To check on Mercer. His behavior during our last mission lingered in the back of my mind like a warning bell. I ran into Dr. Rhys Levin, Mournail's chief medical officer, in the hallway. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I was just about to call you, he said. There's been a situation with Mercer. My blood ran cold. What kind of situation? Levin glanced around before leaning in. He came in at 2 a.m., complaining of a pounding headache and severe nosebleed. Then, he stopped responding. Unconscious? No, Levin said, shaking his head. He's awake. Awake and writing. Writing what? That's the thing. He's covered the walls of the observation room with complex symbols and equations. We've never seen neural activity like this, not in a conscious subject. My stomach twisted. Let me see him. Mercer sat cross-legged on the floor of a sealed observation chamber, surrounded by paper, scrawled with symbols identical to the ones I had hidden. His right hand moved non-stop, scrawling new formulas. His left was flat against the floor, fingers splayed, as if feeling vibrations from beneath the facility. Blood crusted beneath his nose and ears. How long has he been like this? I asked, staring through the observation glass. Since intake, Levin said. He hasn't spoken. Barely blinks. Doesn't eat. We tried sedation, it had no effect. His metabolism seems altered. Has anyone shown the writing to the science team? Dr. Marlowe reviewed a few pages. He looked disturbed. Said it resembled theoretical models from Project Ascensus, but more advanced. Beyond what we can simulate. Before I could respond, my comm buzzed, a message from Director Langdon. Emergency meeting. Level 4. Now. The conference room was packed when I arrived. Langdon stood at the head of the table, flanked by Marlowe, Dr. Voss, Dr. Soren, and a visibly rattled Dr. Silas. Solomon, excuse me, Silas, sat off to the side, mumbling to himself like he was reciting something from memory. Miller, Langdon said, nodding as I entered. We need to talk about containment. I sat. Holloway stood guard near the exit. His hand hovered near his sidearm. He didn't know what was happening. None of us did. But he knew something had changed. Mercer's condition raises serious concerns, Langdon said flatly. Dr. Silas believes we're witnessing early-stage contamination. Silas finally looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands trembled. It starts with dreams, he said. Then comes the writing. The equations work their way into your brain. Change the pathways. Rewrite you. Stage 2 is physical, he continued. Biological restructuring. Cellular shifts at the quantum level. Stage 3, you're no longer fully human. Preposterous, Marlowe snapped. You're describing pseudoscience. I watched it happen in '91. Silas hissed. 11 researchers. All gone. I'm the only one who survived. Because I followed the rules. My mouth went dry. What happened in 1991? I asked. The truth. Silas closed his eyes, like recalling it physically hurt. We found the anomaly during excavation. Back then, it was small. The size of a plate. We thought it was mineral. Then Dr. Kale touched it. Silas paused, swallowing. The material, responded. Fused with his hand. We had to amputate. He looked up. We created the 7 rules to contain it. But higher-ups pushed for progress. Longer exposure. Recording equipment. We ignored the warnings. And then came the whispers. Dr. Soren flinched. They start low. Silas continued. Barely audible. But they grow. Clearer. They give you symbols, instructions. Coordinates. By the time you understand them, it's too late. You've been recognized. Recognized by what? Voss asked. Silas shook his head slowly. We never agreed on terminology. Some thought it was a life form. Others said it was a dimensional leak, a tear in reality. I think it's something worse. A weakness in the fabric of the universe. A pressure point where the laws of physics bend. The room went still. Langdon cleared his throat. Whatever it is, we need to contain it. Dr. Silas, you survived once. What's your recommendation? Full evacuation of level Sigma, Silas said immediately. Seal Section E, burn all transcribed equations, including Mercer's. His eyes landed on me. And any others who may have written them. Marlowe slammed his hand on the table. That's scientific vandalism. The anomaly could revolutionize everything. Energy, time, space. That's what we thought last time, Silas said quietly. Right up until one of us solved an equation and vanished, taking 3 people with him. Langdon turned to me. Rowan, your assessment. I hesitated. My mind flashed to the 12 pages hidden under my mattress. I think we need to tighten containment, I said. Restrict access. Monitor everyone exposed. And secure all notes, recordings, anything tied to the anomaly. You've broken a rule, Silas said softly. Everyone looked at me. I can see it in your eyes. I opened my mouth to respond, but my comm crackled to life. Emergency. Level 3 medical. Subject Mercer has escaped containment. All available personnel respond. Langdon paled. How the hell? The comm cut in again. He walked through the wall, sir. Through the solid wall. The sirens were already howling as we ran from the conference room. Langdon barked orders into his calm. Contain him. Use whatever force necessary. Do not let Mercer reach Section E. I grabbed Holloway. Get Beck. Full tactical gear. Meet me at level 6 checkpoint. 15 minutes later, we were in position. Level 6 was the last barrier before Section E, a reinforced security station designed to stop anything short of a tank. But I had no idea if it would stop what Mercer had become. Non-lethal only if possible, I told them as we suited up. Sir, with all due respect, Beck said, chambering around. If you walk through a wall, I'm not sure what non-lethal even means anymore. Fair point. My earpiece crackled. Command to Rowan, we've lost visual. Last confirmed position, level 5, section B. He's heading for the central shaft. Copy that, I replied. Hold the line at level 6. No sooner had I spoken than the temperature dropped. Our breath turned visible. Frost formed along the edges of the hallway lights. The fluorescence flickered, dimming into a dull red glow. Holloway raised his rifle. Movement. Beck pointed upward. The ceiling. Dark stains spread across the panels above us, like ink bleeding into fabric. Symbols emerged from the growing blackness, identical to the ones Mercer and I had drawn. He's here, I whispered, but not walking. Then we saw him. Descending from the ceiling, not falling, but drifting downward like gravity no longer applied, was Mercer. But he wasn't Mercer anymore. His body moved in sharp, disjointed motions. His limbs flexed at impossible angles. His eyes had turned jet black, smooth and glassy, like obsidian stones. Blood ran down from his ears, nose, and tear ducts. He didn't seem to notice. Mercer, I called, keeping my weapon ready. Stand down. That's an order. He looked at me. His head moved with a mechanical jerk. When he spoke, it wasn't just his voice, it was layered, like multiple voices echoing in unison. Rowan, you've seen it too. The equations. The truth. He looked past me. Hello, Dr. Silas. I turned. I hadn't heard him approach, but Silas stood just behind us, pale, shaking. You shouldn't be here, I hissed. This is a containment op. Silas ignored me. His gaze locked on Mercer. I've seen this stage before, he whispered. He's not fully gone. Not yet. Mercer's lips curled into an unnatural smile. Silas fears what he cannot evolve to understand. Then he turned to me again. But you understand, don't you, Elias? You wrote the equations. Beck and Holloway looked at me, confusion flashing behind their visors. Don't engage, Silas warned. That's how it gets in. Words are vectors. Don't answer it. But I had to ask. What happened to you, Mercer? Evolution, he said, rolling the words slowly, like it tasted sweet. It showed me how to bend quantum probabilities, how to exist in multiple states at once. His form shimmered, like he was flickering in and out of sync with reality. It wants to teach us all. Sir? Beck asked, gun raised. Permission to fire? Wait, I said. My mind swirled. Part of me wanted to hear more. To learn. Mercer tilted his head at an impossible angle. They're coming, Rowan. They've always been coming. The equations, they're how we survive the convergence. Who's coming? I demanded. Silas grabbed my arm. Don't listen. This is exactly what happened before the breach. Mercer's eyes snapped towards Silas. You delayed them once. Sealed the gate. Hid the math. But not this time, old man. He stepped forward. Fire! I ordered. Holloway and Beck opened fire, tranquilizers first. They passed right through him. The darts hit the wall behind like they'd gone through smoke. Then Mercer moved, one moment standing still, the next flying forward with impossible speed. He struck Beck, sent him flying into a bulkhead hard enough to leave a dent. Holloway switched to live rounds, 3 shots straight to center mass. They passed through 2. Then Mercer was on me. He didn't strike. He reached out, pressed something small and cold into my hand. It was a black stone. Smooth. Heavy. Familiar. "When you're ready to see," he whispered, his real voice breaking through the distortion. "Look through it." And just like that, he slipped past us. Towards Section E. He didn't use the keypad. He just placed his hand on the blast door. The metal rippled like water. He stepped through. Gone. "Jesus Christ," Holloway whispered. I checked Beck. He was dazed, bleeding from the head, but alive. "You okay?" He nodded weakly. "What the hell was that, boss?" "I don't know," I said. Then I looked down at what Mercer had given me. A small, perfectly smooth black stone, identical to the material of the Anomaly. Silas saw it, and backed away like I'd pointed a gun at him. "Get rid of that." "No." But I didn't. I closed my fingers around it. "I need to secure it," I said. "Miller!" Silas barked. "That's a fragment. It spreads through contact. That's how it moves beyond containment." Behind us, Holloway was calling in backup. Alarms changed tone, from breach to full lockdown. Red emergency lights bathed the hallway. And in the chaos, I slipped the stone into my pocket. We received Langdon's final order through the comms. Full evacuation. Immediate lockdown of level Sigma. No one is to pursue the subject. That is not a request. But I couldn't obey. I felt the black stone burning against my thigh through the pocket of my suit. And somewhere deep inside, I wanted to follow. "We need to pursue," I said, turning to Holloway and Beck. "That's suicide," Silas snapped. "If Mercer merges with the Anomaly, it'll destabilize everything. We have to seal the level." "No," I said, voice low. "We need to see." I keyed into my comm. "Rowan to command. Subject has breached Section E, requesting hazmat and tactical support for pursuit." "Negative," Langdon replied immediately. "Evacuation in progress. Return to upper levels." But I didn't move. Silas grabbed my arm. "It's already influencing you. That fragment in your pocket, it's rewriting you." I pulled away. "You don't understand." "No one understands," he said. "That's the point." I turned and ran. Before they could stop me, I slammed my hand on the emergency override. Blast doors sealed behind me. Lights switched to emergency red. Containment protocol active. Shots rang out, Holloway's warning fire, missing by inches as I dove into the maintenance tunnel. The narrow crawl space led straight to level Sigma. I'd used it dozens of times during inspections. Now, it felt like a birth canal. Like I was being drawn back to something that had always been waiting for me. The deeper I went, the hotter the stone became. It pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. I reached the hatch at the end of the tunnel, pushed it open, and stepped onto the empty level Sigma corridor. The lights flickered violently. The walls groaned. Reality, or what was left of it, rippled like heat waves. I pulled out the black stone. Lines had begun etching themselves onto its surface, glowing symbols identical to those from the dreams. "Look through it," Mercer had said. So I did. I raised it to my eye. And the world changed. I no longer saw the corridor, or rather, I saw through it. A layered dimension unfolded in front of me. Impossible angles. Living geometry. Structures folding in and out of themselves, like they didn't obey gravity or logic. Beings moved beyond the veil, massive and formless, yet intricately structured. Their presence pressed against my skull like a migraine made of static and meaning. And far off in the distance, a membrane. Thin. Stretching. Tearing. They were trying to come through. I found Mercer in the antechamber outside Section E. He wasn't human anymore. His body had elongated. Skin darkened to a sheen like the Anomaly wall. He moved in fractured frames, like a corrupted video file. And still, he smiled. "You see it now," he said. "The convergence." "What is it?" I asked. "What happens if it breaks through?" Mercer lifted a hand. His palm shimmered with equations. The boundaries are weakening. For decades they've been. I don't remember crossing the threshold. One moment, I stood at the edge of the anomaly. The next, I was through it. There was no sound. No heat. No air. Just awareness. I was falling and rising at the same time. My body dissolved into particles, stretched across dimensions, folded into new shapes. But I still had thoughts. I still was. Around me, the architects moved, vast entities of shifting geometry, spiraling math, and soundless music. They weren't gods. They weren't aliens. They were foundations. The scaffolding behind what we call reality. And they had seen me. One approached, or maybe became near. A million eyes opened within its form. Images burst into my mind. Earth. Mournail. My own face. And then blueprints. Designs for a new structure. Not physical, informational. A latticework of minds built from human consciousness. They were using us. Not maliciously. Not benevolently. Functionally. We were code to them. Components of a larger equation. Evolution wasn't about biology anymore. It was about structure. Consciousness could be built like cities. They had done it before. Elsewhere. Mercer was right. This was not an invasion. It was an integration. I tried to speak, to ask what they wanted, but my thoughts unraveled. Language didn't exist here. Only pure data. Intent. And what I understood terrified me. We were chosen because we had begun to write the equations ourselves. The anomaly hadn't taught us. It had only shown us what we were already reaching for. It was a test. And we had passed. I awoke back in Section E. Or something resembling it. My suit was gone. My body was wrong. Taller. Leaner. The bones beneath my skin had shifted. My reflection, when I finally found one, wasn't mine. But my thoughts were intact. I remembered everything. The architects. The convergence. The lattice of minds. The purpose. And a new sense of urgency pulsed in my skull. They had opened the first doorway. Others would follow, all across the globe. Different facilities. Different anomalies. All part of the same network. Mournail was the seed. But now that I had crossed, I was something else. A vessel. A translator. A builder. I emerged from the sublevel 4 hours after they declared me dead. Security teams found me standing in the corridor, eyes black, veins glowing faintly. Langdon ordered my immediate detainment. But I didn't resist. I spoke for 3 hours. They recorded none of it. Their devices malfunctioned every time I opened my mouth. Dr. Silas visited me once, just before they moved me to a black site beyond even Mournail's classification level. He looked at me for a long time. "You saw them, didn't you?" he whispered. I didn't answer. But he saw it in my eyes. And then he said something that has stayed with me every day since. "You're not Elias Rowan anymore. I don't know what they'll do with me. Maybe keep me in a box. Maybe dissect me. Maybe let me rot in some forgot